Hi, everybody. Welcome. I want to start with this statement, and I'm going to read it because I've been working on this transcript for a while, and I knew that the time was coming when I would need to talk to you, talk to a very special group of you. This episode is the first in a series of episodes, beginning here, of course, with the first episode for the month of April. And it's entitled The Day Life Changed Forever. And you are listening to the podcast Resolve to Live Forward, which is available not just in podcast form across a multiple number of platforms, but also available on my YouTube channel as well. I'm John Morrow. Thanks for joining me. At the recording of this particular podcast, today is Saturday, fourth day of the month of April, and tomorrow, Sunday, will be Easter Sunday for those people of the Judeo-Christian faith. The title of this particular podcast episode is The Day Life Changed Forever. Uh-oh. Well, let me read this for you. There are moments in life that don't just change our days. These moments, in fact, divide our life into two parts. What was before and what happens afterwards. And these events are so traumatic that often the question that we ask, knowing that what was before is no longer there, is, so what do I do now? What do we do now? And many of you out there who listen to this podcast or watch my YouTube channel know that I talk about the issue of personal grieving. And I also want to clarify something here. Although my particular event in life that changed my life as I know it on this earth forever had to do with the death of my wife, the actual truth is grief is not reserved to just physical death, the death of someone that we are so desperately in love with. Grief comes in all forms, shapes, and fashions. I've said this often. Grief occurs when a marriage is broken and divorce enters into the picture. That is devastating. There are people who truly do not want divorce. They really, really wanted the relationship to last. But it was not possible because it really does take both parties to be willing to put themselves out of the way, to shed the selfish tendencies that we have, and choose to sacrifice, because living without that person is far worse than living with that person. Like me, perhaps maybe you were working in a job that you thoroughly loved and it was something that you looked forward to going to every single day of your life. And then one day you walk in and you're confronted with a story that has happened to so many people over the course of my lifetime. And we hear about it all the time in the news and in stories and see it portrayed in TV and motion picture. Things have changed. Companies have been bought. Positions have been eliminated. Folks are being, for all practical intents and purposes, terminated. It's not really firing in their mind. It's just simply the position is no longer needed. Your services are no longer needed. Good luck. Grief also happens when you go through bankruptcy. Been there, done that. And there are other grief events, some very, very personal, and you can't talk about them. There's all kinds of grief. But there is a distinguishing factor. If you've ever experienced a loss so deep that it changed how you see absolutely everything about your life going forward, then you probably already know what it is that I'm talking about. So today, I'm not here in this podcast, resolved to live forward, to teach you something. No, I'm beginning this series, The Day Life Changed Forever, by sitting here with you quietly and in a moment that most people, outside of those of us that have been there and done that, just simply don't understand. And don't be impatient with people who don't understand. I was that way once too, before I realized the gravity of a loss and how devastating and how demoralizing and how that can really, really alter you in so many, many ways. I came to understand, and now I understand vividly. So I'm going to tell you a story. The most traumatic event in my life that day for me was June 2nd, 2019. Earlier, I told you that today's date is April the 4th, 2026. So coming up in the not too distant future on June 2nd of this year, 2026, if I'm allowed to see the light of day, it will be 7 years since the event that unfolded in front of me. Those of you that have read my book or heard my speeches, perhaps you've seen my TED Talk, know about it. For those of you that perhaps don't, let me just tell it for you. And I don't mean to come across as morbid. Please, please, please don't think I'm doing that. It was home, Sunday morning, June 2nd. Important date. And it was important for a couple of reasons, too. It was exactly 1 week before my son and his wife would celebrate their first wedding anniversary. My son was almost 38 before he finally got married. We were excited about that, but it was also 1 week before I would turn 69 years of age. It's 2019. And if you want to do the math, that lets you know how old I am when I come up on June the 9th of this year, 2026. Now, that in and of itself was important because that's what really set up the opportunity that I saw in the day. Because when I initially got up, being a Sunday, I'd planned to go to church. And I enjoy going to the church that I go to very, very much. My wife, though, had been experiencing what we thought was a stomach virus. And for her, she hadn't eaten much and she'd had frequent trips to the bathroom, and it had all of the signs and indicators of a stomach type virus situation: the nausea, the diarrhea, the loss of appetite. And she'd spent most of her time in bed trying to convalesce and get well. I was there to serve as best as possible, but I was also going about the business of living. And what kept me primarily busy at that particular point in my life was I did a lot of Toastmastering. As a member of multiple clubs, I was attending meetings and serving in roles and functions and doing leadership and enjoying the company of my friends and what I did also for my church, which I enjoy greatly. The rest of my time, when I wasn't doing those things, which I was able to do and thankful for doing, I spent with her. And I was up making a cup of coffee. I had not even begun the process of starting to get ready to get dressed to go to church Sunday morning. And I came into the living room area. Donna walked out of the bedroom. I looked at her. She looked at me. She had a tired look on her face, but there was a slight hint of a smile. And Donna looked at me and said, "I think I'm just about over it." This was her communication to me that she felt like she was finally turned a corner and was actually getting over the stomach virus that she had been dealing with, or stomach virus we thought she had. And maybe it was. I don't know. Let's be honest. You never really fully know. We manifest different types of feelings, emotions, illnesses, and other physiological, emotional, financial situations based upon circumstances which are unique to us. Not a single person that I'm talking to that has graced me with your presence and listening to or watching this podcast has not been there and done that before and had that experience. I was glad to see that she was up. She went to sit down on the couch. She was in her favorite spot, and we had one of those reclining couches where there was a recliner on either side, so I could recline and she could too. We talked for a bit, and then I got up and I said, I'm going to go ahead and start getting ready for church. And as I started to, this is the truth, as I started to walk to our bathroom where I was going to wash my face, brush my teeth, do all the things that I do, as I started to make that round, I stopped. It was like I got a tap on the shoulder. I tell you the truth, as God is my witness. I'm sure I heard him say, stay with her. Stay with her. And I turned and I looked at her and I told her, I said, I've made a change of mind. I'm not going to church. I'm going to stay here with you. I'll never forget the expression on her face. Big smile came up. She said, you are? I mean, she was fine with the idea of me going to church and her being there. After all, she watched television, and we also had these wonderful fur creatures called kitty cats. We're cat lovers. And one in particular, her name was Sugar, always enjoyed being in her lap. Then I said something else to her. Having made it clear that I was going to stay home, I told her what we'd do. I said, we'll stay here. I had offered her a cup of coffee earlier and she said she wasn't ready for coffee. Well, yeah, if you've had an upset stomach, yeah, coffee is the last thing on your mind. But I told her, I said, maybe later you'll be feeling good and I can make you some lunch, something light, something you can enjoy. But most importantly of all, in so much as our son's wedding anniversary is in 1 week and my birthday's in 1 week, let's talk about the celebration and what we're going to do and the plans we have because it's the first anniversary celebration. And what we'll further do is we can talk about the forthcoming summer and do a little dreaming. Let's see if we can't make some plans and get some exciting things done together as a couple. I will point out something else too, and this is very, very important. August of that same year, we would have celebrated our 46th wedding anniversary, but for us as a couple, we had been in love with each other and tight like this for over 46 years. That happened back in 1972 when I met her for the first time. And it didn't take long for me to fall head over heels for her. And I said one more thing, and to this day, I'm thankful because a lot of us, we leave a life with regrets because of things we ask ourselves, we should have said that. And that's torturing yourself, but it happens. And the most torturous thing is when you don't say something kind and meaningful and uplifting and encouraging and affirming when you could have said it and then you wished later that you had. I turned to her and I said, I want you to understand something about why I chose to skip church and stay home with you today. I know I go lots of places and do lots of things and get involved in all kinds of stuff. And I thank you for the fact that you let me do that. But I want you to understand something just in case you don't know and need to be reminded. When I'm not doing that stuff, there's no place I would rather be than right here beside you. I said that. What I didn't know at that particular moment as I turned to go to the bathroom was that that would be the last thing that I would ever say to her while she was still alive. Because while I was in the bathroom, I heard a noise I had never heard before. It was almost as if something very large had fallen off of a counter or off of a table and hit the floor with a massive thud. And I called out and I hollered and I said, Donna, is everything okay? And I did it a second time. And when I didn't hear an answer, I thought I heard something that I'd never heard before. And later, someone would tell me when I described what it was that I heard that it was a death rattle. And maybe it was, because when I came from the back of the house where the bathroom was at and came into the galley kitchen, my wife was collapsed on the floor, unconscious. And so I called 911 and a process of things took place. But about 45 minutes later, in the emergency room, after titanic efforts by first responders in the emergency facility, I heard three words: time of death. I had been denying that death thing because in reality, when she hit the floor, once the EMTs got there, I heard a word. Actually, I heard two words: cardiac arrest. And I knew exactly what cardiac arrest meant, but I didn't think of it as an end. I thought of it as they've got the paddles, they're the guys, they're pumping, they're doing this, this, and this. They're going to restart that heart. She's going to be fine. She's coming back, but she didn't come back. That was the moment when I heard those three words that my life changed forever. It was in that moment that I realized that I wasn't any longer thinking about the future. I wasn't thinking about strength. Here I was, collapsed, just there. And in that moment, I knew my life had been changed forever because what mattered to me the most was completely and totally gone. This was permanent. It's final. Here's what nobody tells you about moments like that. And for those of you that have been there, you get it. Or maybe you're still struggling with it and you're wondering, is there really any meaningful purpose for going forward? But listen carefully. The world keeps moving, but the world doesn't care. Why should it? You're just one of a planet full of billions of people. Death has come to you. It's personal. Life goes on, but you come to a standstill, a screeching, shattering halt. People mean well, but people don't understand because you see, until you've walked that road, you don't even know what to say. I've said things before, not really understanding the gravity, the depth, the pain, the sorrow, the anguish, the devastation of grief. And I thought I was saying something amazing, and I have learned and understood and realized you don't have the words that's going to help a person move past something like that. You don't have them, but you have to be patient with people because they just simply don't get it. And the other thing, too, is that people tend to be impatient. You've heard the phrase, it's time to move on. That's a terrible thing to say if you want to know the honest to goodness truth. And maybe you agree with me. But the truth is, what they're telling you is they expect that you'll be okay. You'll have closure. You can move forward. But anytime that's said, it's still too soon for you because each of us grieves in our own particular way. Grief isn't just sadness. It leaves you with a disorientation that is impossible to fathom. It is waking up to a life that you did not want to live. You did not choose to live this life. And you don't want to live it. And you may wish that you could just go ahead and stop, quit, curl up in the corner in a fetal position and wait to die. And believe me, I've seen people that way. It's terrible. But something else is also happening in that particular moment. something that you haven't recognized yet, but perhaps maybe you will at some point. You're standing at a crossroads, and sometimes you can't even see that you're standing at a crossroads. After you have made a choice or choices, you may have the clarity of mind to be able to look back with 2020 hindsight and say, that was a crossroads. That's what happened to me. So, what do you do when life changes forever? And this is where I really am thankful for the opportunity to share this with you in this next handful of minutes. I'm going to give you three things that I want to tell you in starting this series that'll be grounding pieces. And I want you to hold on to them. And I may repeat them as we do each in this series of stories as part of this journey of living forward. Number one, please understand, accept the fact, and don't get frustrated because you don't have all the answers right now. Please, you don't have the answers right now. Also, stop fighting back against how you feel and let your feelings be there. Be raw. Be authentic. Don't convince yourself you've got to toughen up. The biggest lie I've ever heard is that men don't cry. And let me tell you what, I'll take it a step further. Real men do cry. Because you see, real men know what it is to have loved and then lost. And they have every right to cry. Nobody's looking for you to be strong. I think it takes a far stronger human being to simply let it out. So don't fight it. And understand something that absolutely just surprised the daylights out of me. Life is not about taking lots of steps. When this journey began, life was about taking one step. I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but I do believe I saw a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King. And he was talking about a step of faith. And he says, when you are ready to take that step of faith and you only see one step, have the faith to believe that when you take that step, the next one will appear. You don't need to see the entire passageway. You don't need to see the staircase. You don't need to see the long range. You can't even begin to imagine the end in mind. So take that step, that one step, and live forward. This is not about having a plan. I'm not giving you a plan. Oh, we've talked about my power word, resolve, and the seven behaviors associated with those seven letters. And believe me, resolve was at the core of everything I did. And I'm thankful that I had it because it was my wife that helped me find the word. It was my wife who helped me to mete out or to ferret out of it from those seven letters, RESOLVE, the seven behaviors that I try to live by every single day in my life as I continue this journey, step by step of living forward. But remember, it's not a plan, it's not a comeback, it's just one step at a time, one day at a time. And if you get to take more than one step, great. And I will also say this too, and this is not a negative. This is just to make you understand something. I told you this June 2nd, it'll be 7 years. Hey, John, are you getting used to it? What? You don't get over it. You learn to carry it with you as you live forward. I'll have a story about that for you at another time, but let's bring this first episode to a close. If you're in that after part of your life right now, that part of your life where you have been shattered, devastated, emotionally obliterated, I want you to hear this. I want you to hear this. Listen. I'm still here. You're still here. The very fact that you're watching this and listening to this You're hearing this means you're still here. Somebody said, well, duh. The problem is you may be at that place where you don't see life as meaningful and you really don't want to live anymore. I mentioned that earlier. I've seen it. But if you're still here, your story doesn't have to be over. Now, in Toastmasters, one of the things that they teach us is don't use so many conjunctions, ands, uts, buts, so's, that sort of thing. No, don't string them together. Talk in complete sentences, make paragraphs cogent and consistent and tight, and don't string a lot of those filler words in there and those connecting words where you just drag the sentence out into multiple phrases and it's the longest paragraph in the world with only a period at the end after you've said 10, 15 things. No, that's Toastmasters, and that's right. That's good public speaking. That's the best kind of public speaking. But in your life, the story of your life, and in this particular moment that you're at, you may think you've come to the end of the story, and you want to put the punctuation mark on and say, okay, I'm done. It's over. And if you think for 1 second I didn't entertain that thought, you are dead wrong. Pardon the expression, dead. There were moments when I didn't feel like I had the right to live forward. Certainly, I didn't have the motivation, but my story wasn't over. And this is not a phrase original to me, but I once heard it said, if you put a period at the end as a punctuation point of your life, then that's the end. Or maybe it's the end of a chapter, and now there's a new chapter, and you write a different story. I also heard it said, as you're telling the story, this is not a period, but it's a comma because there's more to come. And I think I've experienced both of those over the course of these years since my wife died. So if you're still here, life isn't over. Your story's not over. But what happens next? That's going to require something from you. So here's the question that I want to leave with you before I wrap up today. What has changed in your life that you're still trying to understand? What has changed in your life that you're still trying to understand? And it's okay to not be sure. This is not necessarily about finding the answer, it's about finding your answer. What's it going to take? And I believe there's a way that we can talk about that together and weave our lives together through that and make something meaningful out of it. Thank you for the opportunity to begin this journey. We'll talk more about this in the next forthcoming episode for the following week. But I want to wish all of you and hope that you had a happy Easter, a beautiful Easter, a blessed Easter. And if you're not into the Easter thing, I hope that whatever you're doing over this first weekend of April in 2026, that you're enjoying fulfillment and happiness in your life. Don't spend so much time thinking on the negative. Focus on the good things that are around you and let those make a difference. You've been listening to Resolve to Live Forward. I'm John Morrow, the host. I will tell you that the podcast is heard on multiple podcast sites through the hosting platform Buzzsprout. I'm on Spotify. I'm in the Apple Store and several other podcast platforms. And I have a YouTube channel as well. And I hope you'll grace that YouTube channel and watch the videos. I'm going to continue to try to be there for you as long as I'm able and have the breath to do so. My name is John Morrow, and you can reach out to me by email. It is johnmorrowcoaching@gmail.com, johnmorrowcoaching@gmail.com. You can also find John Morrow on Facebook. I have two sites. I have a Resolve to Live Forward site for Facebook, and then I have the John Morrow DTM site. DTM is Distinguished Toastmaster because I'm a Toastmaster. Thanks for joining me today. I want to wish you the best. Be blessed. Thanks in every way, form, shape, or fashion for allowing me to be a part of your life and for connecting with me and being a part of this journey because all I want to do is just give something to you that's going to make your life meaningful. But remember what I always say as I close. Please, please, please never stop living forward. Resolve to live forward. Bye bye for now.